us to signal the start of our forever. I stood at the altar, hands trembling, tuxedo choking me. Friends and family smiled, all waiting for Clara. The organ music swelled, sunlight streaming through stained glass, painting the aisle in color. It was the day I'd dreamed of since I met her. But the minutes dragged on. The organist repeated the same melody, hope turning to unease. My best man, Mark, squeezed my shoulder, worry in his eyes. I stared at the heavy oak doors, willing them to open. I pictured her in white lace, her smile lighting the room. Then her father appeared, alone. He walked down the aisle, face pale, steps heavy. He handed me a small folded note in her handwriting. I am sorry. No explanation. Just an apology that shattered my world. The music stopped. Silence filled the church. Guests stood, faces a mix of confusion and pity. The stained glass colors mocked me. Hope evaporated, replaced by suffocating sorrow. I couldn't speak. I just clutched the note, feeling it drag me down. The wedding bells never rang for us. Only the sound of my own heartbreaking echoed in that hollow church. The day that was meant to unite us became the day everything fell apart. I stood frozen, unable to move, as the world shifted around me. The perfect day was gone, replaced by a nightmare I couldn't wake from. I watched as everyone left, their eyes filled with questions I couldn't answer. The silence lingered long after the last guest was gone. I was alone, holding 3 words that would haunt me for years. The music had died, and so had the future I'd imagined. 10 years have passed since that day. Today would have been our 10th anniversary. I own a small bookstore on the coast now. My life is quiet, predictable. Surrounded by stories, I hide from my own unfinished one. The man at the altar is gone. In his place, someone quieter, more guarded. People know me as the bookstore owner, not the man with a broken heart. I walk my dog Buster along the beach every evening, waves soothing wounds that never fully heal. Sometimes customers ask if I'm married. I just shake my head and smile. I dated a few times, but part of me was always stuck in that church waiting for answers. Anniversaries are the hardest, reminders of what never was. I stare at the ocean, lost in thought, haunted by questions with no answers. What did I do wrong? Why did she leave? The echoes of that day never fade. I've accepted I'll never know the truth. My life is a series of routines built to keep the past at bay. But every July 2nd, the quiet is louder, the solitude heavier. I live with the ghost of Clara and the story that ended before it began. Some wounds never close. They just become part of who you are. This anniversary began like any other. An elderly woman donated a box of books to my shop. As I sorted through them, I found an envelope inside a worn novel. My name was on the front, in Clara's handwriting. My heart pounded. The letter was sealed, never sent. Why was it here after all this time? With shaking hands, I opened it. It was dated the day before our wedding. She wrote of her love, her excitement for our future. It was a letter full of hope, not someone planning to leave. But in the last paragraph, she mentioned a sudden trip to Havenwood, a family emergency. She promised to return in time for the wedding, but she never came back. I'd never heard of an aunt in Havenwood. The letter wasn't an explanation, it was a clue. Why did she go? What happened there? For the first time in years, I felt a spark of hope and a new question. The past wasn't finished with me yet. The letter was a door, opening onto a mystery I couldn't ignore. I knew what I had to do. Havenwood echoed in my mind. I searched for it online, a tiny, remote mountain town. The letter had reignited my need for answers. I dug through an old box of memories, searching for clues. I found a faded photograph, Clara as a teen, standing with an older woman in front of a rustic cabin. On the back, Clara and her Aunt Mary. Havenwood, summer 2005. So the aunt was real. Why had Clara kept her a secret? The cabin's crooked porch and stone chimney stood out. If I could find it, maybe I could find answers. The mystery deepened, pulling me back into the past. I packed a bag, pinned the photo to my dashboard, and left a note for my assistant. I was using the same excuse Clara had written. A family matter. As I drove away, I felt like I was chasing a ghost. The photograph was my only map. I was heading toward a truth that could heal me, or break me again. The past was calling, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. I needed to know what happened in Havenwood. The journey had begun. I was finally ready to face the truth. The drive to Havenwood was long and winding. The city faded into forests and mountains. Cell service vanished. I arrived at sunset. One main street, a handful of buildings. I checked into the only motel, laid out the photo and letter. The next morning, I showed the photo at the general store. The owner recognized the cabin, the old Miller place up on Ridge Road, but no one had lived there since Mary passed away. My heart sank. Aunt Mary was gone. Still, I had to see the cabin. I drove up a gravel road, trees closing in. The cabin was there, dilapidated but unmistakable. The porch sagged, the chimney crumbled. I stood on the porch wondering what secrets had died with Aunt Mary. The answers I sought seemed just out of reach, but I wasn't ready to give up. Defeated, I stopped at the diner for coffee. The waitress, Sarah, noticed the photo beside my cup. She recognized Mary Miller and her niece, Clara. Clara used to spend summers here, Sarah said. I told her I was an old friend searching for answers. Sarah's voice softened. Poor girl, she went through so much. Mary wasn't just Clara's aunt, she was her guardian. Clara's parents were adoptive. Mary was her biological family. Around our wedding, Mary became gravely ill, a rare, hereditary disorder. Clara came to Havenwood to care for her, forced to choose between love and family. The disease was genetic. Mary made Clara promise not to tell me. She wanted to spare me a future of heartbreak. Clara left not out of abandonment, but sacrifice. The truth hit me. She left because she loved me. The secret was a shield, not a betrayal. My anger faded, replaced by understanding. The story I thought I knew was only half the truth. Clara's silence was an act of love. I finally saw the real reason she disappeared. The past was no longer a mystery. It was a story of sacrifice. Sarah told me Clara still lived in Havenwood in the old cabin. My heart raced. She was here after all these years. I drove back up the gravel road, saw flowers by the porch, smoke from the chimney. I knocked. The door opened. Clara stood there, older, but still her. We stared at each other, words failing us. I held up the unsent letter. I found this, I said. Tears welled in her eyes. She invited me in. The cabin was warm, filled with light and memories. We sat at the table, 10 years of silence between us. She told me everything, her aunt's illness, the genetic risk, the impossible choice. She wrote the love letter, then got the call. Her aunt was dying. She rushed to Havenwood, realized she couldn't marry me, couldn't risk tying me to a future of sickness. I couldn't bear the thought of you becoming my caretaker, she whispered. Leaving you was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I did it to set you free. Her confession was raw, honest, and heartbreaking. The truth was more painful and more loving than I'd ever imagined. We sat in silence, the weight of the past pressing in. I saw the strength it took for her to walk away. The life we lost was built on a secret born of love. I reached for her hand, the first touch in a decade. We were supposed to face everything together, I said. Tears streamed down her face. I know, I was scared. The wall between us began to crumble. The pain was real, but so was the love behind her choice. The secret had cost us everything, but the truth set us free. We were two people, finally sharing the burden. The past was no longer a prison. We were ready to let go. Her confession lifted a decade of confusion and hurt. She'd sacrificed her happiness to protect me from a future that might never come. The anger melted away, replaced by sadness for what we lost. Did you ever get tested? I asked. She shook her head, afraid to know. She'd lived under a cloud of fear, alone. I took her hand. You didn't have to do that alone. We were a team. Tears fell. I thought I was being noble, but maybe I was just scared. The secret had cost us years of love and laughter, but now, with the truth revealed, the wall was gone. All that remained was understanding, and the possibility of healing. The weight of her love was greater than the weight of her secret. We sat together, finally free from the past. We talked through the night, filling in the gaps of 10 lost years. I told her about my bookstore. She told me about her life in Havenwood. We were strangers in some ways, but the connection remained. As dawn broke, we stood on the porch, watching the sunrise. I'm going to get tested, she said, voice steady. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for not giving up. I realized my journey was about more than answers. It was about helping her find courage. The future was uncertain, but the anger and hurt were gone. Whether as partners or friends, healing had begun. The ghost of Clara was finally at peace. The story no longer ended with a question mark, but with a sunrise. For her, a life free from fear. For me, freedom from the past. We stood together, two hearts watching one sunrise, ready for whatever came next. Forgiveness, I realized, is its own kind of love story. And sometimes, that's enough.